PEPCAST, Episode 3, Pooled Retirement Plan Myths. Are pooled employer plans too cumbersome with too many parties involved for adopting employers? Hi, everyone. Welcome back to PEPCAST, our audio series designed to get you plugged into everything you need to know about pooled retirement plan solutions. I'm Amy Furness, Director of Marketing Strategy at Ascensus, and I'm here with my co-host, Dale Essenmacher. Dale is Vice President and Pooled Plan Specialist, and he's been focusing on pooled plan solutions for more than a decade. Good to be back with you, Dale.
You too, Amy. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right, before we get started, just a quick note for our audience. If you haven't checked out the other episodes in our series, you can find all of them on our PEP webpage. In our first episode, Dale did a great job of providing an overview about multiple employer plans and pooled employer plans. And then in our last episode, we started the good stuff of exploring some of the myths and misperceptions that people have about PEPs. So today, we're going to break down another myth, that PEPs are too cumbersome with too many parties involved for adopting employers. So Dale, where do you think this one is coming from? I mean, obviously, if you have an existing plan and are moving it, it's going to go through a process like any other plan conversion. But what happens when you're on the other side of that conversion? Isn't it actually less cumbersome for employers?
Thanks for the question, Amy. We did discuss this a little bit in the previous podcast, so shameless plug there if you go listen to those. But one of the main advantages of joining a PEP for a plan sponsor is the alleviation or lift of the administrative burden in running a plan. As I discussed earlier, there's a lot of businesses where the HR departments just don't have the resources that they once had, and that administrative lift becomes a very big deal for those companies. Once a plan comes through conversion in a PEP, we're really going to ask them to upload a full payroll file to us every week or every other week, however often they pay their employees. And then at the end of the year, we're going to come back to them and ask them about 7 or 8 questions so we can do their testing. Obviously, we want to make sure they're also available for questions throughout the year, but really those are the only 2 things they're going to have to do. That's it. So once you join this type of solution, that administrative work becomes very minimal compared to what they were doing as a standalone plan.
That's really informative, Dale. And let's look at part 2 of this myth, which is about the complexity of having to work with too many parties in a PEP. I'm guessing that this one comes from the fact that some PEPs do have a pool plan provider, a different 316 administrator, maybe a TPA, maybe an outsourced investment advisor, but do all PEPs have multiple parties involved?
Yes, you mentioned, Amy, in your question about some providers. Most providers have many moving parts. A lot of our competition has a PPP that's separate from the record keeper. They might have a separate TPA, that's the 316, and then a separate 338 investment advisor. There could be 2, 3, 4, 5 parties, or like I like to call it, hands in a cookie jar when it comes to putting together these types of solutions. It can be cumbersome if you have that type of an arrangement. Our arrangement is a single point of contact. We are the record keeper, we're the administrator, we're the 316, we're the custodian. You kind of get the picture, right? It's a single point of contact and a single solution. The 338 investment advisor might be one of our partners, or we can even perform that duty as well.
Great, Dale. So if an employer is considering a PEP, what sorts of questions should they be asking their advisor or pool plan provider to understand what they need to do upfront as well as what they're responsible for after they are set up in the PEP? And how do those responsibilities compare to if they were managing it themselves in a standalone plan?
So every business owner, when they're making any decisions, especially when they're the fiduciary, which they are on their 401k plan, they should perform a due diligence on any solution, especially a PEP solution. The only way that they can justify the decision down the road is that they have done a due diligence and documented that. Some of the questions they should ask is who is responsible for all the different functions within a PEP. Some of the ones I mentioned earlier, who's the PPP, who's the 316 fiduciary, who's the 338 fiduciary. And they want to make sure they understand those parties because they're going to have to, again, justify their decision making that they've done the due diligence on those parties. If you have what I'll call a tight solution or a singular solution that we have at Ascensus, it's a little bit easier to ask those questions because, again, we're doing most of the work, if not all of those functions. So I would highly suggest any advisor, plan sponsor, do the homework, make sure you fully understand the solution and what they're buying before you go ahead and make that decision.
Another great discussion, Dale. Thank you so much. And like we've done previously, let's close today by telling our audience where they can go if they have any questions right away or who they can talk to for more information about PEPs.
Yeah, I would ask anybody and everybody out there to search the Ascensus website for more information about MEPs and PEPs. And of course, I would love to have a conversation and go into a deeper dive with anybody out there to discuss if this solution fits your practice and or your employees.
That does it for another PEPCAST. On behalf of my co-host Dale, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Next time, we'll be breaking down another common myth about PEPs, that they have hidden fees and are more expensive. Talk to you next time.